morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee with the Pastor. I'm Pastor John Woodin, and this is a ministry of Hollywood Faith Christian Center in Hollywood, Florida. We welcome you. Well, let's look at one of Paul's many miracles. He had many miraculous things happen in his ministry, but one is I love in Acts chapter 20 is there was a certain young man named Eutychus who was sinking into a deep sleep. Now, Paul is preaching. And remember, he's going on for several hours, and he was overcome by sleep. And as Paul continued speaking, he fell down from the third story and was taken up dead. So he fell out of the window onto a Roman street. Now, Roman streets were paved. They had paving stones. So he would have fallen out basically on the concrete, and he died. It says, but Paul went down, and he was taken up dead. But Paul went down, fell on him, and embracing him said, do not trouble yourselves, for the life is in him. Now when he had come up, they had broken bread and eaten and talked a while until daybreak, and they brought the young man in alive, and they were not a little comforted, which is pretty amazing when you consider that somebody dies in your meeting and you jump on him. That's what, the Greek, it says he didn't just fall on him and just touch him. He jumped on him, and the life was restored to Eutychus. In Galatians chapter 2, Paul writes, then after 14 years, I went up again to Jerusalem with Barnabas and also took Titus with me. That's when he met with Peter. And for 15 days, he had met with Peter to discuss what was happening in the church. Paul's ministry was primarily to the Gentile world. And eventually, by the end of the first century, going into the second century, where the church had started as an outgrowth of being Jewish, now there were more Gentiles in the church than Jews. And so, unfortunately, that became a stepping off point for an anti-Semitism in the church. And a lot of the early church fathers were quite anti-Semitic, and also, unfortunately, created the notion that the Jews killed Jesus. Now, because remember, we're warming up to the Roman world. The Roman world is warming up. So literally, by the time Augustine is writing in the 4th century, Rome has already declared Christianity to be the religion of the empire. So now we can't say the Romans killed Jesus. We have to say the Jews killed Jesus. Well, no one killed Jesus. Jesus gave himself up. Just look at John 18 when they come and they say, are you Jesus of Nazareth? And he says, I am. And they all fell backwards. He stood there and waited for them to get up because it was his time. He gave himself up. In Galatians 2, it continues by saying, and the contrary, which they saw that the gospel for the uncircumcised had been committed to me, and the gospel for the circumcised was to Peter. So Peter was ministering to the Jewish world, and Paul was ministering in the Gentile world, which was most of the Mediterranean. Now, the Roman world was set up perfectly for evangelizing. There were paved roads. The Romans had built paved roads all over the empire. And so it was very easy to walk from place to place. And they built it not primarily for commerce, but mostly to move the troops quickly. If there was a problem, that they could move troops quickly to take care of it or anywhere in the empire. And in a town that did not have a synagogue, the Jews would gather together at the river. So that Paul knew that if there was no synagogue there to discourse about Jesus, that he could go down there and he would find the Jews on the Sabbath meeting there. In Acts chapter 16, when he had come through Phrygia and the region of Galatia, they were forbidden by the Holy Spirit to preach the word in Asia. And after they came to Mysia, they tried to go to Bithynia, but the Spirit did not permit them. Finally, we know that this is the Macedonian call, that he has a dream about a man from Macedonia calling out to him, asking him to come for help. But they're totally directed by the Holy Spirit. That is just so amazing. It's not like this itinerary where next year I'm going to preach here and I'll be back, and the way it is today. But it is totally by the Holy Spirit. And I know several ministries that were act that way. One was Tommy Tenney's. He never did anything without consulting the Holy Spirit. And no matter how big or small the request was from the church, he would pray about it and see what the Lord would say, where he should go. And he was totally directed by the Holy Spirit. That is amazing. God bless you guys, and we'll see you again next time.